Hello everyone, welcome to the channel and to my All Grown Up series, where we look at games that are at least 21 years old. Today we are looking at a game originally released on May 5th, 1992. Happy Cinco de Mayo, Blaskovitz. We're playing Wolfenstein 3D. If you're watching this video in 2022, that means Wolfie is turning the big 3-0. 30 is not quite old enough for a midlife crisis, but it is certainly old enough to be a pack-a-day smoker raising 4 kids in a trailer park. That's not my prediction for Wolfenstein, by the way. In fact, I have fond memories of this game, and I really hope it still provides some level of fun today. As an alien child of the 90s, and a video gaming child at that, I remember playing Wolfenstein 3D on a low-performance, portable IBM ThinkPad laptop, and a few years later on my Game Boy Advance SP. Today, I'm playing it on a modern laptop with a 3070 RTX inside. Hopefully my new hunk of junk can keep up with those Jaguars of the 90s. I'm also cheating a bit, and instead of playing the classic DOS version, I'm playing the version released for Windows computers via Steam. Alright, enough mumbo-jumbo. Let's get into it. Gameplay is up first, and let's just say, if this game is even a little bit accurate to human history, it's really no wonder the Nazis lost World War II. Look at all this treasure they just left lying around, unattended, throughout the castle. Messy, messy. The enemies of Wolf 3D aren't the sharpest light bulbs in the shed, if you know what I'm saying. If you don't know what I'm saying the AI is pretty basic. Essentially, if the bad guys hear or see you, they'll come a-runnin'. And how do you stop them from hearing or seeing you? Well, you don't. Hallways are basically the worst hiding place in the universe. Speaking of hallways, the difficulty of this game comes from its maze-like labyrinthian levels combined with limited resources given to the player. Sometimes, an enemy can sneak up behind you or open a door you weren't expecting. But for most of the game, memorizing enemy positions is the name of the game. All of the levels, sans the boss level, consist of the same objective: find the elevator and escape to the next level of the castle. The boss levels feature, you guessed it, bosses that you have to find and kill. Sometimes id tasks the player with finding between 1 and 3 keys that will unlock doors, which is akin to sprinkling 3 grains of salt onto a steak for seasoning. Intentional or not, controlling BJ Blazkowicz feels sort of like driving a tank. Instead of W and S being up and down, and A and D being left and right, W and S was up and down, and A and D was pivot left and right. I didn't see a way to change this in the menu, so I rolled with it, and because of the slower pace of the combat, the tank controls were surprisingly usable. In terms of level design, Wolf 3D can get stagnant fast. Most of the levels seem fair, however similar they may be, during the first 3 episodes. The nocturnal missions, on the other hand, are a completely different story. It's clear that id wanted to up the ante here. Like, really up the ante, and create something the world had never seen before. And up the ante they did. Sort of. If you consider adding a flurry of half-baked ideas being hurled at your face with no way to defeat them, upping the ante. Seriously though, some of these levels feel completely thrown together, as if I'm playing through a version of the game my friend sent me for feedback. It seems about 5 minutes into the brainstorming session, the team ran out of ideas and started spitballing the most outlandish encounters they could possibly think of putting into the game. The graphics are how I imagine RoboCop sees the world. Verhoeven's RoboCop. Not whatever happened in 2014. Anyway, being a raycast-based rendering system, the maps are composed entirely of 2D sprites that give the illusion of 3D space. This is where Wolf shows its age quite a bit. The illusion of space was enough in 1992, but now that we're all wise to the trick, it just looks dated. And the perspective is locked to horizontal view, a dead giveaway that the game isn't as robust as games nowadays. The draw distance is pretty short. There were a couple fights in long hallways where I couldn't tell if I was being pursued by a guard or if I was being menaced by a conspicuous-looking firm. and conspicuous-looking ferns you will find around every corner. This is a clever way Wolfenstein has aged well, placing strategic moments of tension through nothing more than harmless decorations that are shaped and colored similarly to the sprites of the guards. At medium distances, enemies are low resolution but still visible. At close distances, Wolfenstein 3D graphically performs like other Raycast games. The audio from Wolf 3D is instantly recognizable, I'd say iconic, to anyone who played this game back in the day. A door opening, a guard yelling, the sound of getting that chain gun. You know the one. But aside from all of those FPS sounds that have become classic, it seems Wolf 3D has taken an audio cue from somewhere else. Arcades. The computer jingle that plays when BJ picks up treasure or eats food is more reminiscent of Mario finding a star in Super Mario World than it is to anything today, making the audio feel quite dated in places. We've largely moved away from abstract sounds representing an action, opting instead for the sound of the action or object in reality. Sort of like how talkies and their use of actual sound design replaced silent film's musical score. And that's probably for the better. Finally, we land upon story. The story of Wolfenstein. The story of Wolfenstein. Well, there really isn't much of one to speak of. If you read the manual, you'll find a synopsis of the events that led up to Billy's capture. But who plays a video game to read the manual? In-game, story is divulged one bit at a time via text at the end of each episode. It's a pretty weak way to tell a story, and doesn't really hold up in any modern sense. However, I can appreciate the small stab the game took at world building. In some levels, BJ will exit a mad scientist's dungeon area and enter into an area of more standard Nazi fare, who we can assume are running the experiments in the dungeon. I would consider this basic world building. Let's get into ratings. We use an overly complex rating system here at TAP, and I have a 30-second video on it if you'd like to know more. The basics are as follows. 4 categories, 3 points each, with a total of 12 points out of 10 points possible. Here on All Grown Up, we allow for extra credit. Gameplay. 1. Gameplay elements vaguely resemble what we know as modern shooters today. A shooter game with a first-person perspective. This game, in many ways, spurred the FPS genre, so perhaps it is unsurprising that gameplay can still create moments of tension and satisfaction when overcoming multiple enemies. Graphics, 0. The draw distance is too short, the detail is too low, and the environments look too similar to one another. I don't think this holds up in the modern sense. Audio, 0. Sound effects are rudimentary and sometimes arcade-like. These are 2 aspects of sound modern games stay away from. The music sounds like basic computer-generated music. Some sound effects are better than others, but overall, none of the sound design in this game holds up to modern standards. Story, 0. There isn't much of a story here aside from what the gameplay tells us, that you are escaping a castle. We also have what the text slides tell us at the end of each act, which is never anything too serious. The story was an afterthought here, and that alone means it doesn't hold up to modern standards. Final score, 1, which means Wolfenstein 3D earns an F- and fails at fun in 2022. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Wolfenstein is or ever was a bad game, and I'm sure it can be enjoyed today with a healthy scoop of nostalgia or some mods. That's all for this video. If you hated this video, tell me why in the comments and spam that dislike button. If you enjoyed the offering on display, you know the deal. Like, subscribe, and tell me to get cranked in the comments. Alright, let's hope there's not a million people here. Oh, God damn it! Fuck! This game, dude.